Welcome to another edition of Jules Voto's Photo Focus. In this video, I'm going to be reviewing a lens I have owned since March of 2018, but I've never used it on my Nikon Z8 until Christmas Day 2024. So we're going to look at some pictures from Christmas Day, but I just want to tell you a little bit more about the lens and my history with it. When I first purchased this lens, and I bought it a refurb for like $520. I use it on my Nikon D810. And then in February of 2019, I purchased the Nikon Z6, and I still had my D810. I still have my Nikon D810. And it was my primary lens for the Z6, along, of course, with the FTZ adapter, until November of 2019, when I picked up the 24-70 2.8 Z mount. So when I got my Z8, of course, I had, by that time, several Z mount lenses, and I have never used it on the Z8. So on Christmas Day this year, this past year, at a family gathering, I decided to take along my Z8 along with the 24-120 and just see how it performed on the Z8. So that's primarily what this video is going to be about. And on Christmas Day, I also mounted my Godox V1 Pro flash in the hot shoe, and I had the Magmond flash diffuser. It's a really cool system. It has this adapter that you attach to the flash. It has magnets on it, and then you have different accessories, and they're just magnetized, and they go on very easily. It gives you a nice quality of light. I'll be doing a video on this in the near future. So let me just talk a little bit more about this lens, and we're going to see some pictures, of course. And it was introduced in August of 2010. So this lens has been around a long time, and recently, in the last few years, Nikon has come out with a Z mount version, 24-120 F4 Z mount lens. It's superb. I have read some reviews on it. I don't own that lens, but I have read reviews. I've heard from a lot of people who love that lens. Some people even prefer it to the 24-70 2.8 if they don't need the speed of the 2.8. And of course, it has a little bit extra reach. And this lens has served me well, using it on my D810, which I have it mounted to here. And then also, of course, when I got the Z6, I was very pleased with the results. I just wanted to get a Z mount lens, and that's when I went with the 24-70 2.8. Let's just go over the specs on this lens. It has 17 elements in 13 groups. It has a 9-bladed aperture. Minimum focus is about 1.5 feet or 45 centimeters. It weighs 25 ounces or 710 grams. Now, when you use it on a Z mount camera, you need the F to Z adapter. So that brings the total up to about 29.5 ounces, and in grams it's 835 grams. So it does, of course, add some weight to the lens with the adapter, of course. It takes 77mm filters. Currently, this lens is still available new, and it is listed at B&H for $1,096.95. Now, the much newer Z mount version also lists for the exact same price. So if you are thinking of purchasing a 24-120 and you're shooting with Nikon Z mount cameras, go with the Z mount version. It's the same price, and it is a superior lens by all accounts. So I still use this lens, or rather, my son still uses this lens. He helps me out a few times a year on several jobs. One is the Heart Walk, and he uses it on my D810. and it works out really well. So a lot of those pictures are outdoors of the preliminaries to the walk and the walk itself. And then he shoots indoors with flash, usually at like 5.6, usually has it set to 5.6, and it works out well for that. He also helps me with a few resident graduations for several hospitals that I shoot for. And again, he's shooting with the D810 with the 24-120 and flash, and it works out well for that. As I said, I took this lens with me, mounted to the Z8 with the F to Z adapter on Christmas Day to my cousin's house, took some candid as well as some pose pictures using this Godox flash. And this first image here you're looking at was at 120 millimeters at 5.6, and it's perfectly sharp. This next one is at 110 millimeters at 5.6, and I shot this lens at its longest focal length of 120 and also down to 24 millimeters and in between. This shot of the olives and pickles on the table was at 62 millimeters at f8. My niece and nephew, with the kids behind them with the phone here, this was at 34 millimeters at f8, and you can see it has nice sharpness, good contrast. And this other shot here is at 44 millimeters at f8. And here's another one at 120 at f8 at my niece with the wreath behind her. So that's at f8 at 120. And this shot here is at f4. So it's wide open at its longest focal length, and I think it looks decent. And this shot here was at 120 at 5.6, and then these last couple of the kids near the fireplace were at 24 millimeters at 5.6. On this second one here, I just cropped it in a little tighter just for the kids. So I think it worked out really well. And then what I wanted to do is compare this lens to my 24-200 Z mount. So I did that using my standard test setup that I have used many times before. And what I found was that the newer lens, at least at the wider focal lengths, is sharper, especially out to the edges. I guess I shouldn't be surprised at that, even though the 24-200 is a less expensive lens. I've been very pleased with it, and I know many of you, many people probably watching this video and others prefer the 24-120, and I understand that, but I like the 24-200 because it gets me out to 200, and it's my favorite lens for travel. But looking at these images, this first one here, I shot both cameras at 24 millimeters wide open. Now remember, the 24-200, as you increase focal length, the aperture gets smaller. So it goes from f4 at 24 millimeters. When you get all the way out to 200, it's only at 6.3. So what I did here, I shot at 24 at f4 with both of them. You will notice something on the newer lens. There's more vignetting at 24 millimeters wide open. Then we go here to 35 millimeters at 5.6. The newer lens is sharper at 5.6. Again, more so as you go to the edges, but you even see it towards the center of the frame. We then go to 50 millimeters, the same thing, but it's not as big a difference. The 50 at 50 millimeters, the newer lens is sharper. And then when we get to the longer focal lengths, and I only tested to at 70, 85, and 105, they are very similar in sharpness. I would give a very, very slight edge at the edges to the newer lens. So in conclusion, I think for a lens that's going on 15 years old, I think it holds up fairly well. No, it's not as sharp as the newer lenses, but that is to be expected. You know, one other thing I forgot to mention is this lens has built-in vibration reduction, whereas the newer 24-120 does not. However, when used on a Z mount camera with IBIS, you get that vibration reduction. And also the 24-200 does have built-in vibration reduction, which will work on Z mount cameras that don't have built-in IBIS. If you have any comments or questions on this video, please leave them in the comments below. I always try to respond to all questions and comments. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I publish a new video every Monday morning and Wednesday morning at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.